In this video, I'm going to show you how to find variance and standard deviation the long way. Obviously, if you put this into your graphing calculator, you'll be able to just enter the data and then ask the calculator to give you things like the mean, standard deviation, median, and the calculator will just go ahead and give it to you. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do it the long way using the formula, because for your internal assessment, if you choose to find standard deviation, then you want to show all of your work for it. The formula for variance and standard deviation is pretty much the same. The only difference is that the standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So basically, the standard deviation formula, let's say S of x, is going to equal the square root of the sum of the difference of the x's and the mean squared divided by n. Okay, so this is going to give you standard deviation. And the only difference, like I said, is that the square root of the variance is equal to standard deviation. So without the square root part, then that's going to be the variance. So we're going to go through 3 examples. The first example is just raw data. The second example is going to be raw data with frequencies. And the last example is going to be what happens when you have grouped data. In question number 1, we want to find the mean, variance, and standard deviation of the following data: 62, 58, 78, 72. So the first thing that we have to do is find the mean. The mean is just going to be the average. So basically all you're doing is adding up all the numbers and dividing by the amount of numbers. In this case, there's only 4 numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator to add 62 plus 58 plus 78 plus 72. And that's going to give me 270. When I divide 270 by 4, I get 67.5. So that means that the mean for this problem is going to be 67.5. So now I'm ready to calculate the variance and standard deviation. I'm going to actually do one chart for both of them because, like I said before, standard deviation is just the square root of the variance. So when I go to set up my chart, I'm basically going to list my x values. When you see something like x of I, the I just stands for like any x. So first x, second x, third x, fourth x, and then just in general, we say x of I. So then standard deviation is the average distance of each value from the mean. And so right now we want to find out how spread out the data is. And that's what standard deviation is going to tell me. So in the formula, the next thing I have to do is take each x value and subtract the mean. Whenever you take all of the data values and subtract the mean, then you're going to have that sum be equal to 0. So that doesn't really help us much. And in order for us to go around that problem, what we're going to do is take those differences and we're going to square them. So that's where the square comes in from. So in this particular case, I'm going to list 62, 58, 78, 72. And for each one of these, I'm going to subtract the mean. So I would do 62 minus 67.5 and then figure out what that is, negative 5.5. And then for each one of these, I'm going to do 58 minus 67.5, 78 minus 67.5, 72 minus 67.5. For the sake of the video, I'm just going to write down what the answers are. So for this column, basically what I've done is that I've subtracted every x value minus the mean of x, which we found to be 67.5, and I wrote down the result. The next thing I'm going to do now is take that difference and I'm going to now square it. So I'm going to do negative 5.5 squared, negative 9.5 squared, 10.5 squared, 4.5 squared, and I'm going to go ahead and write down those values. So now I'm ready to get the sum of this last column, which is 251. So in order for me to figure out the variance is going to be the sum 251 divided by 4, which is n, and that's going to equal 62.75. Standard deviation is going to be the square root of the variance, so it's basically going to be the square root of 62.75, which is approximately 7.92. And in another video, I did show you how to use the TR-84 Plus graphing calculator so that you can enter the data into your list under Stat Edit, and then you can go to Stat Calculate or Calc one variable statistic, and it's going to give you those values. So if I were to do that right now and enter my data into a calculator, and then I go Stat Calc one variable statistic, you're going to see that I'm going to get exactly the same answers. I got a mean of 67.5. I got a standard deviation of 7.92. Another note that I want to make is that in the calculator, for the IB class at least, you're always going to write down the sigma x or sigma y value. You're not going to write down the s of x or s of y value, even though that's how we are writing it ourselves.